Good evening, everyone. This is the Black Post. This evening, the message will be sent yet again about Black vaccinations and eugenics in America. So this evening, I want to go over first and foremost what occurred. They took down the video because it was simply too powerful. So I was contacted by YouTube that the information pretty much was too damn real, and that the people but this is social media, and we understand that it's ran by a white supremacist society. And so when the information is too powerful, they will like to ban the video, they would like to put a strike against your channel. But of course, we're going to keep pushing ahead. And again, I'm gonna give this information again because I think it's very important. I was going to talk about Tariq Nasheed's new movie, Buck Breaking. I thought it was a very powerful and very informative film. But nonetheless, I want to talk again about Black vaccination and eugenics in America. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. I won't be before you long. Okay, I won't be before you long. I will give you this information this evening. And as you're seeing here on your screen, this is some information. This is some pictures for you guys to look at as I'm giving you some commentary, okay? So what's important is that when it comes to eugenics, eugenics is as old as Hitler. Eugenics is as old as Sir Galton Francis or Sir Francis Galton, but we'll get into that. So eugenics, the study of how to arrange reproduction. Listen to this, the study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population to increase the occurrence of inheritable characteristics regarded as desirable. So literally either increasing or decreasing in reproduction to desirable characteristic of a particular people. Now, developed largely by Sir Francis Galton as a method of improving the human race. So this was during the time of the Third Reich and Hitler trying to pretty much wipe away Jewish people and take over the world, okay? This is during that time. And these are some of the methods that they use, okay? So by improving the human race, eugenics was increasingly discredited as unscientific and racially biased during the 20th century, especially after the adoption of its doctrines by the Nazis in order to justify their treatment of Jews, disabled people, and other minority groups. Now, again, I've said this before, that America has definitely used a lot of Nazi third rank propaganda, experiments, and methods to control, decrease the Black population in America. It goes without saying. Eugenics, he just an old white man who did some evil things. You know how it is. Galton eugenics was a program to artificially produce a better human race through regulating marriage and thus procreation. I mean, Galton put particular emphasis on positive eugenics aimed at encouraging the physically and mentally superior members of the population to choose partners with similar traits. And of course, that was white people, Anglo-Saxon white people, in that case, Germans. So this is essentially nothing new. Now, when we look at the first sign of eugenics, still under British rule, okay? It was still under British rule. So when I'm looking at this, it goes to show you how ancient old, not only eugenics, but in modern day society, how eugenics is essentially is. So let's look at this. Now, as I'm breaking this down, if you guys want to take notes, that's fine, okay? Or you just revert back to the video. But it tells you that the legal liabilities and responsibilities that have been debated between the UK and the Kenyan Republic, because Britain pulled out of Africa in around 1963. That's when a lot of those countries regained their freedom, okay, who they start to gain their independence, so to speak. In 2013, the British government reached out a final settlement, okay, a final settlement totaling 19.9 million, including legal fees for over 5,000 claimants. Now, this was all in shillings. It wasn't in pounds, of course. They wanted to dumb it down. They didn't want them to get that much money. But this is where it all started from. In recent years, reports of sterilization of HIV positive women have surfaced in Kenya as well as other countries around the world. Now, I know a lot of you guys may be familiar with this particular story, but under Kenya's 2010 family planning guidelines, sterilization is meant to be on an informed and voluntary constant basis. Again, it was voluntary and you're supposed to be informed about what it was doing to your body. Women living with HIV in Kenya have been offered $40. Listen to this. Women in Kenya who had HIV was offered $40 based organization called Project Prevention to have birth control devices, the IUD, okay, the implanted. But however, many women were either sterilized without their consent, okay? And if you guys are watching that show, The Underground Railroad, the leading actress, believe it or not, is a South African. She's not foundational Black American. She's not African American. I'm just giving you that information. That's a whole nother video of how that even in our today's society, there's a lot of people, okay, there's a lot of people are playing the roles of Black Americans, and they're essentially from another country, okay? They're from another country. And even now, as I'm saying this video once again, I can see that my feed is being slow. This happens when you speak in truth to power. It happens all the time. So please bear with the video. Believe me, my internet connection is strong. I just tested it. I have over a gigabyte worth of speed. I digress. Now, they was given sterilization, IUDs, and other sorts of implants without their consent. And they were told by the government-sponsored health facilities that sterilization was mandatory for women with HIV. Now, understand that Kenya is not a communistic country. It's a democracy, it's a republic in some sorts. Over 40 HIV-positive women will go to court soon after 2012 to demand justice and possible compensation for wrongful sterilization. Now, similar court cases are pending before the courts in Zambia, South Africa, Malawi, Namibia, because in 2012, Namibian women went to court claiming discrimination of women with HIV being sterilized. This was overruled and compensation has not yet been decided. But this wasn't by the hand of the Kenyan government. This was in hand by the British, okay? They let their cronies and their puppets to do the biddings of their white zaddies. But I digress with that as well. Now, there's another form of eugenics that is full blown as we speak right now, ladies and gentlemen. It is full blown as we speak. And believe it or not, this is a new form of eugenics that a lot of people are not understanding. Now, if you are homosexual, I hope you do not take offense to this, but believe it or not, you might have had some assistance in your homosexuality. There was a paper ran, I forget the author's name, but the author was out of the Department of English at Purdue University. And he stated that one of the most important insights developed in the fields of lesbian and gay history and the history of sexuality has been the notion that homosexuality and by the extension, heterosexuality are relatively recent inventions in the Western culture rather than transhistorical or natural categories of human beings. What he's saying is that Homosexuality at the rate that is going is inventions that has been inputted and injected inside of in Western world society for one means or another. That is what they're talking about. He said that it's inventions in Western culture rather than the transhistorical or natural categories of human beings. And when I'm thinking he's talking about transhistorical, meaning like from Rome, a lot of Roman guys were gay. A lot of Roman guys were heterosexual. See, in the African continent, homosexuality is brand new. There was no history of Africans, our ancestors, okay? We're the descendants of those ancestors ever being homosexual, okay? It goes against nature's law. It goes against everything you believe in. It goes against everything that's natural, okay? Because in order to procreate, you need man and female, especially in the animal kingdom, okay? We are considered mammals. We're considered animals, okay? We're Homo sapiens. So when you look at this, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take note. Now, if you believe, I'm just using this as an example, but if you don't follow the Bible, you follow the Bible, that's on you. But listen to this. When God told Noah to build the ark, he told him exactly how to build the ark. Then he told Noah, I want you to go out and get 2 of each animal, 2 of each insect, 2 of each everything, male and female. Why did God tell Noah that? So when you get out a male lion and a female lion, they can make a baby lion. Not, oh, go get 2 male lions, go get 2 male chimpanzees. No. So this goes against our natural law. So as you can tell, having you been seeing that all of this homosexuality has now been injected inside of our kids. They're showing them all of these figurines. They're showing them these displays. They are literally projecting homosexuality to kids. Essentially, this is how you take away choice, because children's minds are very fragile. They soak up everything like a sponge. So it's not a matter of, oh, it's okay to be homosexuality. Kids get confused all the time. You will tell a kid, hey, go hand me the remote off the table. They might bring you back the butter knife. And you know I'm telling the truth. So this thing about they're ejecting and projecting this homosexuality narrative into our kids, think about how most of our kids will become confused. And they say, oh, well, I'm supposed to be with another boy, or I'm supposed to be with another girl. Like, no, they're not saying that. They're trying to. And now you up here buck dancing and explaining how to go about explaining this new narrative and perspective. And quite frankly, it's visual poison. This is visual poison because they're now talking about teaching the very same thing in school to our kids. And the only thing as a parent you can do is take your kids out of school. And you may have a job, a career, etc., and you may not have the time nor resources in order for that child to be homeschooled or even tutored. See, this is the issue. So it's almost like you being forced inside of a box of allow them, the Western society, to teach your kids and confuse your kids. And this is the new form of eugenics. This is the new form of eugenics. I can't express this enough. This is the new form of eugenics because basically eugenics is sterilization, okay? So we are essentially sterilizing ourselves through homosexuality. We are essentially, give me a second, they're messing with my feed. Here we go. Golly. They're essentially having us sterilize ourselves through the homosexuality narrative. Okay. The way they go about this, as you can tell, ever since this whole new Me Too, to essentially undermine the Black Lives Matter movement, they have been pushing the LGBTQ community in place of. Now, and again, I must say, I have nothing against that community. I have nothing against it. But we need to understand what Western media and Western powers are doing to essentially modern day eugenics by encouraging homosexuality. Because when you start messing with the kids, and you know how fragile the kids are, you start have to question the issues. And even as I speak truth to power now, as you can tell, they're messing with this feed by slowing it down, wanting people not to hear this information. But I'm gonna keep trucking. Now, I want to move on to vaccinations, because as you tell, now I want to move on to vaccinations, because as you can tell, they're messing with the feed. And again, I told you last time they banned my other video talking about the very same thing. It was just too powerful for them. Okay. They continue to mess with the feed, family. My apologies. Again, my internet connection is very fast. I don't know the issue, but I'm moving on to vaccinations. Okay. So the first sign that we need to understand in vaccination is how the Western world have been testing on Afro-native, melanated people for a very, very long time. Okay. And by the way, let me just mention, back in 1964, the North Carolina Eugenics Board met to decide if a 20-year-old Black woman should be sterilized because her name was redacted from the records. Okay. And she was a single mother with one child who lived at the segregated O'Berry Center for African American Adults with Intellectual Disabilities in Goldsboro, North Carolina. Let me just point this out very quickly. Now, she had been orphaned as a child and had a limited education, likely because of her low IQ score. The board determined that she was not capable of rehabilitation. So instead, the board recommended the protection of sterilization because she was feeble-minded. That's what they deemed her, and unable to assume responsibility for herself and her child. Without her input, the guardian signed the sterilization form and she was sterilized. See, again, they do things, they don't inform Black people of these things. And this is why a lot of Black people are skeptical of going to the hospital. Now, her story is one of 35,000 sterilization stories that people are reconstructing at the Sterilization Social Justice Lab. Now, their interdisciplinary team explores the history of eugenics and sterilization in the US. You might want to go check that out. But it's imperative to note is that eugenics in America has been happening in the Black community. That's why our population has died. And if you know, with this new movement and projection on the Black community with homosexuality, our numbers are also diminishing. And again, they continue to use Nazi Germany experiments on the Black community. The whole term ghetto, that derived from Nazi Germany, where Hitler was putting Jews inside of essentially ghettos, living on top of each other, beside each other. And what they noticed during this experiment, that Jews started to fight and kill each other. They used the very same tactic on the Black community. And matter of fact, most of our brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, family members are still living in ghettos and projects around the US. We are still being used and subjugated under the white supremacy rule. And a lot of us need to wake the fuck up, because we're not understanding and realizing that we're not low impoverished, we're not homeless, we're not broke, we're not dumb. That this is essentially all by design. And if you don't understand history, then guess what? You don't understand the present. See, a lot of us are just walking down the street, getting beat over our head by a race soldier, or getting shot by a white supremacy soldier with a badge. And we don't understand why. Why are you doing this? I haven't done nothing to you. Why, sir, what's going on? Why are you putting, and we're not understanding what the hell's going on. You need to understand history. They want to exterminate us. Yes, because of your black skin. Now, they always need a working class. They always need a lower class to feed on. So they would like to keep some of us around, but never to the amount, okay? Never to the amount that can either one or two things. We have enough numbers in order to fight, to have a revolution, to have a rebellion. And some of you like, what are you talking about? Revolution, rebellion. We're free. Are we? Don't you see black people on TV? Don't you see melanated people on TV disproportionately being targeted either by Karens, where the police is being called on and black men are getting killed, and Brads, and our black women are getting stumped in these Asian restaurants and nail shops? And again, all Asians aren't bad, so don't take it the wrong way. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, you see how the narrative is being flipped. And then the Democrats, and I'm not Republican, I'm apolitical, I don't follow none of that trash, because all of it's just all devilish worship to me, okay, for a sense of a matter. Now, here's the thing. African Americans have been targeted by every other group by some form of fashion. We know we're the most marginalized group. We have been attacked by white supremacists, being killed in the street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You already know the story. But how is it that Asian Americans get a federal executive order protection under the law for racism and xenophobia, but African Americans who've been in this country even before the beginning of this country, back in 1562, if you recognize yourself as a foundational Black American, then you understand. But nonetheless, we have never gotten an executive order of protection under this government. Never, never. But supposedly this executive order derives from people discriminated against Asian Americans because of the coronavirus. I digress. Let me move on. So yellow fever. Now, you guys may not be familiar with yellow fever, but I'm getting to vaccinations. I'm getting to how viruses have been plaguing the Black community, and they always make it our fault. They always because of Black people, always because of Black people. Just have you guys noticed a story in China that they were going around beating up Africans because they said they brought COVID-19 to China, where it literally derived in China. But anyway, but yellow fever, man, you know, it can give you delirium, headaches, seizures, hepatitis. It can do all sorts of things to your body. But here's a story that you guys may not be familiar with. Now, talking about this story, it was not the first time when New York was being hit by the yellow fever back in 1795. And compare and contrast, just to give you another date that you guys absolutely go look up. It's called Red Summer of 1919. Go look up Red Summer of 1919. I might do a video on that. Okay. As early as 1668, the deadly disease was thought to be a punishment from God that the governor at the time had to order a fast day. But in 1793, the largest scale yellow fever epidemic struck the United States Capitol in Philadelphia. Okay, that's when the Capitol was in Philadelphia. They said that the fever came in the summer and faded in the winter. But it was estimated that 1/10 of the population in Philadelphia had died and more than 17,000 had fled, okay? 17,000 people died. That's a lot of people in one city. And that the others fled by November of that year. Dr. Benjamin Rush was a physician and medical researcher in Philadelphia. He had persuaded, listen to this, he had persuaded the Free African Society, a religious Black community, to volunteer and send helpers and nurses to help with taking care of white patients who were white. White patients were white, okay? My bad, I was typing my commentary and I wrote that twice because white patients are white. But anyway, he believed that the Blacks had special immunity that can escape from yellow fever. This, again, if you guys ever read the book, Medical Apartheid, this notion This propaganda that has been transcended throughout history, that Black people are somehow inherently impervious or susceptible or immune to viruses and diseases, and or that we don't feel pain the same way as white people. Like we're superhuman or we're aliens, or you know what they're really trying to do, saying that we're animals. Because you know how a raccoon can or a dog can essentially have rabies and live. That's what they're basically trying to say, that we are somehow immune to yellow fever. I mean, we have the same biology as any other Homo sapien on this earth. The only difference is we have freaking melanation in our skin. But yeah, Dr. Rush thought that Blacks were immune and that we can somehow escape yellow fever. Now, although he later said that he was being mistaken at the beginning, he still claimed that the disease was lighter in Black people than in white people. So it's like, if you're looking through a microscope and you're looking at antibodies, you're looking at the viruses in their cell form, he's basically saying that, oh, when I looked at in the Petri dish and I looked at the white cells I looked at the cells of a white person, I saw 100. But when I looked in the cells of a Black person with yellow fever, I saw 50. This is the propaganda that the white supremacy society projects on Black people. And have you ever heard the notion that Black people have like a third muscle in their leg or in their calf muscle? That's why we can jump higher. Anybody ever heard that? Or that essentially Black people, that we shouldn't abide by the BMI because we are, bigger people. In a sense, there is some truth to that. Our structures are different, but again, the BMI is scientific and it's a range. It's a great scientific model for you to follow for your weight. This is an example. Now, in some cases, they have noticed that African Americans, we have thicker bone density, and somehow we relate that to being big bone, but that doesn't mean big fat. Because essentially, when we talk about women who are big bone, usually you're saying that she's a thick girl and she's fat. You really can't see the density of your bone. I'm just giving you some of the propaganda that we somehow misconstrue, misunderstand, that has been perverse and perverted by the dominant society in the Black community. This is how we get confused. Now, he said the belief continued when the epidemic spread to New York after 2 years, despite the living proof shown in the comeback of yellow fever about two years ago, referencing 1793. Now, the whites who were still dominating the city's decision and opinions claimed, this is how they get us every single time, claimed that Blacks can gain self-protection with their body specialty, that we can somehow gain body protection with our body's specialty. But however, the question is whether Blacks really have an immunity to the fatal epidemic, and the answer is absolutely not. But Rush, this doctor, also said in his self-written account that he did receive Black yellow fever patients in his clinic in Philadelphia. While this scientifically unproven belief might have been Blacks into risk, they were still encouraged to help with the nursing. Even though Blacks were contracting yellow fever, we were still encouraged to help nursing white people back to health. Now, the reasons behind this construction of this belief, where the hospitals were facing shortage in human resources as many whites had fled. And of course, whites could flee because they had the money. We had no money, but we had to stay, but we were still encouraged to help. But now the opinion of leaders in the Black community also wanted to make use of the chance to serve to achieve their religious and social goals. I call this modern day buck dancing for zaddy. These what you call cooning it up. But ladies and gentlemen, it's undeniable that the cause of yellow fever was still uncertain, which had them clueless about the correct way of fighting the epidemic. I mean, the fantasy of racial immunity did not bring anything good to the Black community. The only thing it brought was death. They were even accused of not taking care of their white patients. Think about that. These brothers and sisters of our community was taking care of these white people, and they were sickly themselves and dying off. And we were still encouraged to go out and help white people. And doing that, they turned around and said that we were not even taking care of the white patients and getting too much money during the epidemic. They said too high wages, too much money. And the magazine publisher accused, here's the thing, magazines, that's what I tell you about media, mass media, magazines, all the news networks you listen to. There was a magazine publisher accused African Americans of working with extorting high wages, saying we was extorting them for working in yellow fever conditions. And then they turned around and also in this article, they said even stealing from those they nursed. So blacks were seen with unique immune abilities. Another epidemic later on. For some reason, back in time, they thought that we was immune to malaria, which indeed had nowhere to gain immunity, and again exposed the whole race into serious disease. This is medical apartheid that has been occurring with Afrinated people for a very long time. This is nothing new, okay? This is nothing new. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. So if you guys aren't familiar with yellow fever, again, I gave you some symptoms, okay? And if you notice, if you look up yellow fever, you mostly see black people. You're going to mostly see black people. You see a couple of fake pictures of a white person. But when you see real people, what do you see? Black people. See, we're not only disproportionately something, we are also marginalized. We're also always at the forefront of anything bad. Okay? Anything that's horribly related is either closely associated to African descendant people or to black. Okay? Let's move on. Ebola. When you look up Ebola, you also see melanated people at the forefront of every picture and every story. But what people will not tell you, that Patrick Oliver Sawyer, that's Patrick Oliver Sawyer, was a Liberian American lawyer who was notable for being the index case for the introduction of Ebola virus disease into Nigeria during the West African Ebola epidemic. Sawyer was a naturalized U.S. citizen who lived in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. That's what people won't tell you. And this happened back in the 70s. This happened back in the 70s. Now, that happened back in 1974. Look it up. Patrick Oliver Sawyer, he was the index case for Ebola. Now, what you're not understanding that I want you to compare and contrast, he is the one who introduced Ebola into Nigeria. But they would tell you that the virus started in Nigeria. No, go look up Patrick Oliver Sawyer, who was a Liberian American. Have you noticed that most of the disease started in white America? Not white America per se, but in white people. Because melanated people have never been known for being nasty. We have never been known for being dirty. There's people in Africa, they will go out to the freaking ocean and wash their body with soap and sap from a tree. They was even brushing their teeth with twigs and stuff back in the day for some of the first toothbrushes and toothpaste. The descendants of Africans, whether you're in Hispaniola, in Haiti, in the UK, in America, all around the world, Black people have never been known as dirty people, especially when it comes to HBO, and that's human body odor. But yeah, back in 74, Patrick Oliver Sawyer introduced Ebola into Nigeria. Now, when you look up if you looked up first Ebola outbreak, look up first Ebola outbreak, you're going to read that the first outbreak of Ebola virus disease was reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1976. In 1976, but Sawyer went to Nigeria in 1974, 2 years prior. And they will tell you in a community near to Ebola River, that is the reason of his name. That's how it gets his name, because it was first reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo back in 76 near the Ebola River. Now, it was a devastating outbreak with 318 cases and 218 deaths for a case fatality ratio of 88%. One of the most deadly 8 outbreaks in history was Ebola. And it came from a white man who traveled to Nigeria. The virus spread, and somehow it gets to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they coined the name. Now, last but not least, I'm going to briefly go over this one because this is the most famous story of the Tuskegee Airmen, or better known as the Tuskegee Experiment, which began in 1932 at a time when there was no known treatment for syphilis, a contagious venereal disease, after being recruited by the promise of free medical care. 600 African-American men, not women, African-American men, because we have the genes, we have the organs to reproduce. See, if your sperm is tainted, it doesn't matter. And if you notice right now in America, not only with the homosexuality that's going with the modern day eugenics, but we also have to look at the new swirl of nation, where if you look on TV, you're going to see a couple of things, ladies and gentlemen. Let me point this out to you. One, you're going to see a lot of women-led films, and this has nothing against women. I love women to be equal to men, okay, in some regards. But you're going to see an overmass majority of women being projected into films, okay? Then secondly, you're going to see a lot of Black women with white men. Now, if you notice, Black men have been dating all sorts of races. You've seen Black men and white women on TV every now and again. One of the most famous films that Wesley Snipes was in was Jungle Fever. And it was amazing because they call it Jungle Fever. Wesley Snipes is Black, and they're saying that the white women had jungle fever, that somehow Wesley Snipes was from the jungle, which he wasn't. But that's a very racially charged title of a movie. But nonetheless, what you have to look at is, if you've been watching commercials and TV shows and movies, that they're really pushing this narrative that Black women should be with white men. And anytime you war a woman against their men, the foundation of the family structure is demolished. Plain and simple. You have Black women with white men, and then you have the Black men being gay. Eugenics, propaganda, no Black community, all dysfunctional. That's how easy that is. But now, getting back on this Tuskegee experiment, we have to understand that the participants were primarily sharecroppers that, excuse me, I said airmen at first, excuse my apologies, but sharecroppers, and many had never before visited a doctor. Now, the doctors from the U.S., listen to this, the U.S. Public Health Service, that's under the federal government, which was running the running the study, informed the participants of the latent syphilis, and they also had a control group, but it was 600 in total. Let's just say this, a lot of them died. Can I say that? I don't want to bore you, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't. Because I know that this story is not new, but what we have to understand is this. They have been killing our people for hundreds of years in many different ways. Whether it be enslavement, hooking us up to change, whipping us, buck breaking us, raping us publicly during slavery, hanging us on trees, chopping off our penises and testicles, all sorts of heinous, evil things. You need to wake the fuck up and understand that Black genocide has been happening since the beginning of this freaking country. This country was built on capitalism by the way of torturing and enslaving African African native people. And I say African native, I mean African and melanated people, our brothers and sisters, and also our descendants. And there's so many ways that they're attacking the Black population around the world. They're either doing it socio-economically, psychologically, medically. They do it with housing and marginalization. And I know that this weekend they're doing a special on the Tulsa, Oklahoma. But even with MOVE, they destroyed the whole Black city. So there's many ways how they always stop the economic growth, the medical enhancement by doing sterilization. So we won't have that many people. So our population numbers are always low. This is how white supremacy works in modern day society in America and around the world. So hopefully I've given you a bit of information for you to think about and also to research. This is the Black Post. This evening, the message was sent, whether you liked it or not.